Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world. One quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Sunday, 8th June 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. Israel is actively preventing aid ships, including Madeline carrying Greta Thunberg, from reaching Gaza, diverting them, and asserting its right to maintain a sea blockade by any means necessary, according to the Foreign Ministry. Meanwhile, Palestinian sources report multiple casualties from Israeli fire near Rafah aid distribution points, with conflicting reports of 4 to 10 deaths. Israel claims warning shots were fired at suspects approaching its forces. Adding to the controversy, a UN rapporteur, Francesca Albanese, has criticized the US-backed Gaza aid system as humanitarian camouflage and a tactic to justify what she terms a genocide, alleging Israel intentionally creates chaos to further its colonial rule. Moving to Syria, Israeli strikes have reportedly killed an alleged Hamas member. According to Israel, while the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reports 1 death and 2 injuries. Back in Israel, the military revealed a tunnel under a Gaza hospital, alleging the body of Mohammed Sinwar was found there, and led foreign reporters on a tour. Another tunnel near a southern Gaza hospital reportedly led to a room where a top Hamas commander was allegedly killed. Finally, an Israeli minister has announced the impending release of sensitive Israeli documents obtained by Iran, potentially linked to a reported hacking of a nuclear research center. China's economic growth faces headwinds as May saw export growth slowing to 4.8% year-on-year amid tariff uncertainties. Consumer prices decreased by 0.1% year-on-year for the 4th consecutive month, indicating deflationary pressures. Shenzhen is responding with a 39-point plan to boost domestic consumption, focusing on AI and export support. China is innovating technologically, with Beihang University's mass production of a non-binary AI chip that enhances fault tolerance and power efficiency. New images of China's 6th-generation fighter jets, the Chengdu J-36 and Shenyang J-50, have emerged, suggesting advanced cruising capabilities and potential drone collaboration. However, the rapid expansion of China's EV industry and a subsequent price war among companies like Brewed are raising concerns in Beijing, affecting share prices. Brewed and other Chinese EV companies are expanding into Europe, offering affordable models like the Dolphin Surf to compete with European manufacturers. In other news from China, Harvard Kennedy School graduate Yang Yorong faced social media backlash after her commencement speech, attributed to perceptions of privilege. Wang Gongwu's book explores China's modernization through the lens of reformers like Kang Youwei and Sun Yat-sen. A study reveals that microplastics from biodegradable polylactic acid can disrupt gut metabolism and damage the gut barrier in mice, potentially leading to inflammatory bowel disease and diabetes. China's approach to international relations involves a state-backed think tank proposing 4 core principles for resolving South China Sea disputes, blaming external actors for regional tensions. Turning to the United States and China, preparations are underway to resume trade talks focusing on rare earth exports, despite mutual accusations of backtracking on a previous Geneva agreement. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and China's Vice Premier He Lifeng are expected to meet in London to discuss trade war issues. China has approved some rare earth export applications, signaling openness to dialogue on export controls, citing increasing global demand for these materials. Japan is navigating a complex economic landscape, with its GDP contracting at an annualized rate of 0.2% in the first quarter, slightly better than initial estimates. This reinforces the Bank of Japan's cautious monetary policy. The return of inflation is pushing Japanese pensions and insurance companies to seek higher returns, increasing the appeal of services like Goldman Sachs' CIO offering. Nomura forecasts a potential surge in the yen's value due to policy pressure between the US and Japan, recommending shorting the dollar against the yen, with a target of E136 by September. Security concerns are also prominent, with over 2,000 unauthorized transactions logged in May on online brokerage accounts, according to the Financial Services Agency. The country is also bolstering its military capabilities, including the construction of a missile base on Okinawa, amid anxieties about China's expanding influence and questions surrounding U.S. commitment. Adding to these tensions, China's aircraft carrier, Liaoning, was recently sighted near Japan's easternmost island and previously entered Japan's economic waters. Socially, Japan is seeing a rise in sales of religious corporations, raising alarms about potential tax evasion, as buyers may exploit the tax privileges granted to religious organizations. There is also growing support for DA initiatives, exemplified by a top banker speaking at the Tokyo Pride Parade, a stark contrast to the backlash against such initiatives in the U.S. Kakao Chibanya, a popular curry rice restaurant chain, is experiencing customer losses following price increases, a staple since 1978. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba faced criticism after making remarks about women in Gunma Prefecture, drawing condemnation from the main opposition party leader. Turning to China, its increasing military activities and territorial assertions are causing unease for the U.S. and its allies in the Asia-Pacific region. The Chinese aircraft carrier Liaoning's sighting near Japan's easternmost island and its previous entry into Japan's economic waters have heightened concerns in Tokyo, contributing to Japan's decision to strengthen its military. In the United States, policy pressure with Japan could lead to a surge in the yen's value, according to Nomura. The U.S. has also experienced a backlash against the initiatives, in contrast to the growing support for them in Japan. Russia's military has advanced to within 18 miles of Sumy city, a location they were forced out of 3 years ago, and has retaken Loknia in eastern Ukraine. Russian forces claim to be advancing into Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region. Since late May, Russia has launched hundreds of drones and decoys across Ukraine. Wagner PMC is reportedly being replaced by Russia's Africa Corps in Mali.R. Russian officials accuse Ukraine of delaying a planned exchange of 6,000 bodies of soldiers killed in action. Secret Russian intelligence documents reveal deep suspicion of China, with concerns about espionage and technology theft. Russian intelligence also reportedly collects data from WeChat, raising concerns about Chinese influence within Russia. Ukraine is using Patriot missiles, civilian searchlights, and older weapons to counter Russian drone and decoy attacks. Russian military units are again approaching Sumy city and have retaken Loknia. Russia claims to be pushing its offensive into the Dnipropetrovsk region. Ukraine is accused by Russian officials of delaying an exchange of 6,000 bodies of soldiers killed in action. In the United States, the president ordered the deployment of part-time soldiers in Los Angeles without a request from the California governor. There are also questions about a possible shift in the digital surveillance of ordinary people. Turning to China, Trump's actions have reportedly lessened fears among Chinese citizens about American conspiracies to overthrow the Communist Party. Secret Russian intelligence documents reveal deep suspicion of China, with concerns about espionage and technology theft. Russian intelligence also reportedly collects data from WeChat. Kenneth Rogoff and Yu Yongding have discussed the diminishing role of the US dollar and whether China's yuan could potentially replace it. In Mali, Wagner PMC is reportedly being replaced by Russia's Africa Corps. Finally, the global economy is seeing turmoil as Kenneth Rogoff and Yu Yongding have analyzed the diminishing role of the US dollar and the potential for China's yuan to take its place. Colombia is grappling with political tensions after Senator Miguel Uribe Torbay, a prominent conservative figure and presidential aspirant, was shot at a campaign rally in Bogota, leaving him critically injured and sparking widespread concern about security. The nation was further rattled by a 6.3 magnitude earthquake near Parade Bueno, which caused buildings to shake in Bogota and sent residents into the streets, though initial reports indicate no casualties. Ukraine and Russia have tentatively agreed to exchange captured soldiers and bodies next week, amidst ongoing disputes over delays in the return of war dead. Ukrainian forces are asserting the successful deployment of a new remote-controlled speedboat weapon system with anti-aircraft missiles, claiming 2 downed Russian jet fighters. Reacting to drone attacks targeting Moscow, Russia's Civil Aviation Authority, Rosaviatsia, reported temporary airport closures. Russia has claimed 5 Ukrainian regions, though Dnipropetrovsk is not among them. Turning to the UK, the government's plan for significant defence reforms includes cuts to welfare programmes, a move that has ignited public anger. Furthermore, the British Film Institute, BFI, has released a report alleging that AI companies are exploiting 130,000 film and TV scripts to train their models, a practice the BFI describes as a direct threat to the UK screen sector, potentially eliminating junior positions. Regarding China, increasingly strict policies are causing Chinese students to reassess the value of pursuing degrees in the UK. This reconsideration follows observations that a master's degree is now often a prerequisite for competitive entry into the tech industry. United States. In Los Angeles, California, protests against President Donald Trump's immigration enforcement policies intensified, culminating in clashes between demonstrators and federal agents this past Sunday. President Trump authorized the deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops to manage the unrest, which involved thousands of Angelenos blocking downtown streets and a major freeway. Law enforcement deployed tear gas and less lethal munitions in an effort to disperse crowds near the Metropolitan Detention Center. California Governor Gavin Newsom criticized the deployment as a serious breach of state sovereignty, while Homeland Security Secretary Noem attributed the necessity of the National Guard's presence to Newsom's policies. Attorney Robert Patillo drew parallels between Trump's response and tactics employed by autocratic regimes, while Speaker Johnson voiced no concerns regarding the deployment. Bangladesh. Controversy surrounds Yunus, who is allegedly reviving the July Proclamation. This proclamation was originally conceived by students with the alleged intention of undermining Bangladesh's 1972 constitution, a document closely associated with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's legacy. The details and motivations behind this revival are under scrutiny, raising concerns about potential political instability. Iran has expanded its ban on walking dogs in public to include more cities. Authorities cite concerns for public health and social order. This extends a 2019 police directive that previously targeted Tehran. On nuclear negotiations, Iran says the latest U.S. proposal doesn't lift sanctions. They view this as a sign of U.S. dishonesty. Iran's intelligence minister claims they seized information about Israel's nuclear program. They plan to reveal what they call an Israeli treasure trove of secret documents. Iranian rapper Tatulu, once a hardline supporter, now faces potential execution. Turning to the United States, policies from the Trump era may have negatively impacted ticket sales for an upcoming Club World Cup. India is poised to launch its second astronaut, Mr. Shukla, into space, marking a significant milestone 41 years after Rakesh Sharma's pioneering mission in 1984. Trade relations with Pakistan have been strained after a deadly armed attack in Kashmir that claimed 26 lives, triggering a ban on all trade, including the export of Himalayan pink salt. Turning to Bangladesh, Nobel laureate Mr. Yunus has acknowledged a message from Indian Prime Minister Modi who extended Eid ul-Adha greetings to the Bangladeshi people. Across the globe, in the United States, Sue Kaur, a Sikh-American education reformer, has secured a seat on the San Antonio City Council, campaigning on a platform centered around affordable housing, improved public transit, and strategic urban development. In international finance, HSBC is strategically expanding its investment banking operations to capitalize on the growing demand for IPO services from companies operating across Asia and the Middle East. France is currently hosting the third United Nations Ocean Conference in nice time to coincide with World Oceans Day. This major event has drawn world leaders, scientists, and advocates together to tackle urgent threats to our oceans and push for stronger marine conservation measures. As part of the conference, a fleet of 30 research and exploration vessels will embark from the coast of Nice. Pacific leaders are present, urging that past pledges be transformed into tangible ocean conservation efforts. Separately, India's External Affairs Minister, Jaishankar, is also visiting France to participate in the first Mediterranean-Rasina dialogue in Marseille. Italy recently held a 2-day referendum addressing both streamlining citizenship for children born in Italy to foreign parents and strengthening job protections. Low public awareness of the referendums is a concern. The proposed citizenship law changes would simplify naturalization for immigrants' children. Left-wing parties criticized the limited public discourse. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and her coalition urged voters to boycott. Spain is currently facing significant political turmoil as tens of thousands rallied in Madrid, calling for Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's resignation and an early election propelled by growing corruption accusations targeting his administration and family members. The Popular Party, PP, the main opposition force, is spearheading efforts against Sanchez's left-leaning coalition, highlighting these alleged scandals. In a separate incident, a soccer supporter tragically died after falling from an upper level into the media zone during the Nations League final match between Spain and Portugal. Turning to Colombia, Spain has voiced strong condemnation of the assassination attempt targeting Colombian Senator Miguel Uribe, who was shot while addressing supporters in Bogotá. Sub-Saharan Africa is grappling with a severe education crisis, marked by the highest school dropout rates globally. These alarming rates are primarily fueled by inconsistent and prohibitive school fees. The increasing tuition costs in Catholic schools, historically a more accessible option for low-income families, are further straining African households and worsening the already limited access to education. Shifting focus to the United States, a travel ban impacting citizens from 12 predominantly African and Middle Eastern nations, initially enacted by former President Donald Trump, is poised to be implemented. Thailand and Cambodia have reached an agreement to redeploy their military forces to established border positions. This follows a recent deadly confrontation that resulted in the death of a Cambodian soldier. Both nations have reiterated their dedication to pursuing a peaceful solution to the ongoing border dispute. Thailand currently manages 17 official border crossings with Cambodia. Syria is grappling with rampant antiquities smuggling as its security infrastructure crumbles and poverty deepens, leading to widespread looting at historical sites such as Palmyra and the online sale of stolen artifacts. Furthermore, numerous foreign fighters who joined the rebellion that overthrew the Assad dictatorship are planning to stay in Syria, a decision that has raised concerns from both the United States and certain segments of the Syrian populace. Australia saw a multi-agency rescue operation successfully extract 13 people stranded overnight in the Victorian and New South Wales Alps due to unseasonal heavy snowfall, with bushwalkers also requiring assistance near Mount Kosciuszko. In Canberra, the Labour government is facing increased pressure from the Greens led by Larissa Waters and independent parliamentarians Allegra Spender and David Pocock, to implement more stringent rules governing political lobbying activities. Meanwhile, in the sports arena, Queensland made the controversial decision to drop captain Daly Cherry Evans ahead of the upcoming State of Origin game. Adding an international dimension, an Australian journalist was reportedly struck by a rubber bullet while covering protest activities in Los Angeles. Portugal celebrated a Nations League victory, triumphing over Spain in a dramatic penalty shootout with a final score of 5-3, following a 2-2 draw held in Munich. The decisive penalty was scored by Ruben Neves after Alvaro Morata faltered. Amidst the celebratory atmosphere, UEFA reported the tragic death of a fan who fell from the stands during extra time. New Zealand is re-evaluating its foreign and defense policies, potentially deepening security cooperation with Japan amidst escalating global security anxiety. Meanwhile, migrant communities in New Zealand are welcoming a new visa option that permits parents of citizens and residents to make multiple visits over 5 years. Scrutiny has emerged, however, regarding eligibility requirements that might prevent numerous individuals from qualifying. Yemen's al-Qaeda branch leader, in a recent video, directly threatened U.S. President Donald Trump and Elon Musk. The leader cited the ongoing Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip as the primary justification for these threats, marking his first video appearance since taking command last year. Australia faces logistical challenges as the Spirit of Tasmania for 4 remains docked in Scotland, a consequence of the Tasmanian government's delay in building a sufficiently large dock to accommodate the ship. Turning to South America, Bolivia has opted against utilizing Elon Musk's Starlink internet service, even though it could improve connectivity in the country's remote regions. China's maritime activities have recently sparked tensions in the South China Sea, with a Chinese vessel running aground near a Philippine-occupied island. The incident, attributed to adverse weather conditions, has placed Filipino forces on high alert. This event underscores the escalating confrontations between Chinese and Philippine Coast Guard and naval vessels within the contested region, a trend that has intensified in recent years. The United States began enforcing a new travel ban Monday at 12:00 a.m. ET, impacting citizens from 12 countries, largely in Africa and the Middle East. This ban could prevent an Afghan family, refugees who fled Afghanistan 9 years prior, from bringing their niece to the U.S. Pride. The updated restrictions vary by country, with some facing complete visa bans and others facing more targeted limitations. The policy is expected to face legal challenges, similar to previous iterations of the travel ban. In Kenya, a British soldier has been arrested and is currently under investigation by UK military police. The UK Ministry of Defence has verified the arrest. UK media outlets, such as the BBC, are reporting that the arrest stems from a rape accusation. Pakistan faces an unusual economic side effect as donkey prices skyrocket due to Chinese demand for ejao. Simultaneously, Pakistan's annual animal festival is underway, with bustling pop-up markets hosting the trade of bulls, goats, and sheep for ritual sacrifice. Japan is prioritizing tariff negotiations with the United States. Shigeru Ishiba may meet with then U.S. President Donald Trump at the G7 summit in Canada, starting June 15. The upcoming World Cup, co-hosted by Canada, the United States, and Mexico, is poised to be the largest ever. 48 teams will participate, raising concerns about the event's environmental impact given its geographically expansive nature. Chile is currently grappling with protests from indigenous fishermen. Their demonstrations highlight the detrimental environmental effects of salmon farming. This industry heavily relies on exports to the United States. The fishermen argue salmon farming damages local ecosystems. They also say it threatens their traditional livelihoods. Shifting focus to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government is facing increasing pressure to address rising inflation rates. The central bank is considering further measures to curb spending. Public concern is growing over the cost of living. The government is implementing targeted relief programs. These programs aim to support vulnerable populations. Now, in the United Kingdom, the government is debating new legislation regarding immigration policies. The proposed changes aim to tighten border controls. They also seek to prioritize skilled workers. Human rights organizations have voiced concerns. They argue the policies could disproportionately affect asylum seekers. The debate continues to intensify. Meanwhile, in Australia, a recent report revealed a significant increase in renewable energy adoption. Solar and wind power are now contributing substantially to the national grid. The government is investing heavily in green technology. This move aims to reduce carbon emissions. The country is striving to meet its climate change commitments. In Germany, discussions are underway regarding the country's defense budget. There is mounting pressure to increase military spending. This comes amid growing geopolitical tensions in Eastern Europe. The government is weighing its options carefully. They must balance security concerns with economic priorities. The United States has seen President Donald Trump's travel ban impacting citizens from 12 predominantly African and Middle Eastern nations come into effect after a series of legal challenges. This revised ban restricts entry for certain individuals from countries including Nigeria, Eritrea, Myanmar, and Kyrgyzstan. Legal challenges continue, focusing on potential religious discrimination and the ban's impact on families. Transitioning to the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is facing increasing pressure regarding the ongoing strikes by nurses and ambulance workers, demanding better pay and working conditions. The government has maintained its stance against significant pay increases, citing concerns about inflation and the overall economic impact, while unions argue that the current wages are insufficient to cope with the rising cost of living and staff shortages. Negotiations remain stalled, and further industrial action is planned in the coming weeks, potentially disrupting healthcare services nationwide. In the latest from France, President Emmanuel Macron is grappling with widespread protests and strikes over his proposed pension reforms, which would raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. The reforms have ignited significant public anger, with unions organizing mass demonstrations across the country. The government defends the changes as necessary to ensure the long-term viability of the pension system, but opponents argue that they unfairly burden workers. The political deadlock continues, with no immediate resolution in sight, raising concerns about potential social and economic instability. Moving to Germany, the government is debating new measures to address rising energy costs and inflation, exacerbated by the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Chancellor Olaf Scholz's coalition is considering a range of options, including price caps on electricity and gas, as well as financial aid packages for vulnerable households and businesses. The proposals are aimed at mitigating the economic impact of the energy crisis and preventing social unrest. Discussions are ongoing, with differing views among coalition partners on the most effective approach. Singapore is seeing its LGBTQ community contribute personal stories to a time capsule project. These stories represent hope for the future. One participant, identified as V, and his partner, E, contributed their story of a 20-year relationship. Their relationship started when homosexual acts were illegal in Singapore. The couple's story highlighted shared food experiences, travel, and quiet activism. Papua New Guinea is currently grappling with a scandal within its police force, as an investigation unfolds regarding the alleged rape of a woman in detention. Compounding the issue, the inquiry will also address how a former policeman, previously convicted of rape, was inexplicably allowed to rejoin the force. Meanwhile, Mexico is bracing for potential impact as Tropical Storm Barbara has formed off the southwest coast. The storm is projected to intensify into a hurricane, although at present, no coastal watches or warnings have been activated. Romania will see British-American influencer Andrew Tate in court, facing charges stemming from an incident where he allegedly drove 196 km/h in a 50 km/h zone. This legal entanglement is separate from the ongoing case against him and his brother, which involves allegations of trafficking minors and money laundering. In Germany, a judge has issued an arrest warrant for a man who drove his car into a crowd in Passau. The incident resulted in injuries to his wife, young daughter, and multiple other bystanders. Peru has walked back a controversial decision to reduce the protected area surrounding the Nazca lines, a move that followed widespread criticism. The initial plan had sparked concerns about the potential for increased mining activities to damage the fragile historical site. The European steel industry faces a looming crisis, according to a ThyssenKrupp executive. He warned that Donald Trump's proposed 50% tariffs, coupled with escalating energy costs and competition from cheaper Chinese steel, threatened to decimate the sector. Shifting to Palau, the president has voiced strong reservations about the U.S. order to expedite deep-sea mining. He cautioned that such actions are ill-advised and called for responsible measures to safeguard humankind. Finally, in Kyrgyzstan, authorities in Osh have dismantled a towering 75-foot statue of Soviet leader Vladimir Lenin. The statue was once the tallest in Central Asia. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.